What would you do if you had 1 year left to live? If you're any of these guys, you'd go on a suicide mission to stop the lady at the source of all the trouble. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is the most French thing since fresh baguettes and existential dread. This isn't your typical turn-based RPG. It's a tragic, artistic odyssey where you play as people on an expedition to save a world with a plot so twisted and sad that it can make Chuck Norris cry into a croissant. The game blends magic, memory, and melancholy into a story that questions everything, from morality to identity to whether fighting for your life means anything when your life was maybe never even yours to begin with. Whoa. So let's get into it with this edition of Crit Chance, the philosophy of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. There will be spoilers ahead. I'm going to spoil the entire game for you. So do not watch this if you haven't finished the game and you want to find out what happens organically. You've been warned. Alright, first let's do a quick overview. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is set on Lumiere, an island shattered by a cataclysm known as the Fracture. Each year, a giant gray lady in the distance called the Paintress marks a number on a monolith. Everyone of that age or older vanishes in an event called the Gomage. When the monolith reads 33, the island sends out Expedition 33, a volunteer suicide mission meant to kill the Paintress before she paints the next number. Gustave, Maël, and friends crash land on the mainland and are immediately assaulted by monsters and Renoir, an ageless man wielding monstrous armies. Early in Act 1, Gustave dies protecting Maël. Enter Verseau, who claims to be the sole survivor of the original expedition, a man who, like Renoir, has stopped aging. The group then meets Ecce, a whimsical creature that helps them traverse the landscapes, and Monoko, a shape-shifting creature tied to Verseau. They storm Renoir's mansion, seeking the Paintress's heart. Verseau then reveals he and Maël are painting world duplicates of the Descendre family. Eileen, the Paintress, Renoir, Verseau, and Alicia are all members of the family. The real Verseau died in a fire saving Alicia. His mother Eileen then painted a canvas world containing replica versions. Renoir, from the real world, entered the canvas to stop his wife from refusing to leave. He disrupts the balance, causing the world's instability. The original fracture happened when Eileen threw Lumiere off the mainland into the ocean to avoid Renoir. The group kills Renoir and confronts the Paintress. They destroy her heart and erase the number on the monolith, thinking they've stopped the Gomage. However, this removes Eileen's safeguard. With no protection, everyone in Lumiere disappears, except Verseau. Honestly, guys, this game is so packed full of potential philosophical inquiry that it is hard to wrap it all up into one clear meaning.
It's so complex and cool!
Therefore, I will give you 4 interpretations of the game. And then for funsies, I'll give them each a letter grade, grading how central the philosophical theme is to the game's overall meaning. Number 1. The nature of reality. At the heart of Clair Obscur Expedition 33 lies a haunting question. What does it mean to be real? The world of Lumiere is a stunning, mysterious place, filled with life, emotion, and conflict. But as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that this world is not what it seems. It's a painting, a constructed reality created by the Paintress to escape the grief of losing her son. Many of the characters, including the main cast, are not the originals, but painted duplicates, artificial recreations within a magical canvas. And yet, these painted beings feel pain. They grieve, they love, and some of them do some really badass combat. So this bears a lot of similarity to Plato's allegory of the cave. Very briefly, people are chained inside a dark cave, facing a wall. Behind them is a fire, and between the fire and the prisoners are puppeteers casting shadows on the wall. The prisoners think the shadows are reality, because that's all they've ever seen. One prisoner escapes, sees the real world outside the cave, and realizes the shadows were just illusions. When he returns to tell the others, they don't believe him. In Lumiere, the painted inhabitants live full lives without realizing their reflections, copies shaped by someone else's hand. When the truth begins to emerge, They're faced with the same dilemma as Plato's freed prisoner. Is it better to live in comforting illusion or to face the painful truth? And it is painful. When he first gets out of the cave, his eyes need to adjust to the light. It seems like it is much more difficult to live outside the cave than it is inside, because it's all he's ever known. Another French guy named Jean Baudrillard takes it further than Plato. He argued that in modern society, representations, that is, images, media, symbols, they've all become more real to us than reality itself. Therefore, the simulations don't reflect reality. They replace it. In the game, the painted family continues to act, think, and evolve independently. The line between original and duplicate becomes meaningless. If the copy feels, chooses, and suffers, how is it not real? Clair Obscur doesn't offer a definitive answer. Instead, it invites the players to ask whether they'd prefer reality to be defined by origin or by experience.
But I'm not really Verso, and you're not really Mael, are you?
You're not Verso, no. I'm still Mael, though.
And if something born of art can hold truth, love, and sacrifice, perhaps reality isn't found in what we're made of, but in what we choose to become. Because reality is so fundamental to the story, we give this interpretation an A ranking. Number 2. Free will. The issue of freedom is another profound philosophical undercurrent in the game. Every year, those marked for death in the next Gommage volunteer for the expedition. And remember that it's a suicide mission. They act bravely, decisively, and completely in the dark. One of the brave and decisive volunteers is Lune, who believes she had no agency in her youth because of her controlling parents, and she is now determined to make her own choices. It's clear in the story that all of the characters' choices shape the world around them, irrespective to the reality of that world. To help understand this, we're going to use the works of another smart French guy named Jean, who happens to be one of my favorite French guys ever, Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre famously declared that we are condemned to be free. He believed there is no fixed human nature, no divine script to follow. We exist first, and then define ourselves through our actions. Even in ignorance, even within constraints, we are radically free.
They'll never take our freedom!
And that freedom is both terrifying and inescapable. In Expedition 33, the characters act without knowing the truth of their world, but their decisions carry weight. They are not puppets. They are free beings writing meaning into a world that never told them the rules. Some of the characters, such as Renoir and the Paintress, have almost godlike powers, at least in the canvas, while others, like the normal inhabitants of Lumiere, have almost no liberties whatsoever. To be free means to bear the weight of one's choices without excuse. As Mael, Verso, and others begin to uncover the reality of their world, they're faced with impossible moral decisions.
Life keeps forcing cruel choices.
The game embodies Sartre's view that meaning isn't discovered, it's created. The painted world may be artificial, but the people within it are real in how they make choices. Even if their world's a lie, their freedom is not. Since this is one of the less obvious readings, this interpretation gets a C ranking. Before we get into the next two philosophical themes, I need to first explain one part of the game that was missed in the overview. And that's the very end, after the group destroys the heart of the Paintress. In a flashback, the truth of the canvas and the real family's grief is made clear. Now there's a pivotal choice. The player must either side with Mael or Verso. If the player chooses Mael, she defeats Verso, rebuilds Lumiere, and continues living inside the canvas, but gradually fades while the world persists. But if the player chooses Verso, he defeats Mael, destroys the canvas and Lumiere, allowing the real Descendre family to grieve and heal in the real world. Both endings are bittersweet, with neither offering a clean victory, only different forms of closure. This brings us to our next philosophical theme: grief and escapism. The true emotional core of the Clair Obscur Expedition 33's story is a mother who has lost her son. In her grief, Eileen does what any artist might dream of doing. She creates a world where the loss never happened. Through her magic, she paints her son back to life, alongside the rest of her family, and retreats into this fabricated world. But what begins as a coping mechanism becomes a prison. not only for herself, but for everyone trapped in the canvas with her. The illusion of comfort in time becomes a source of decay. This is where the game intersects deeply with the fundamental issue of humanity, and we'll use the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche to help flesh this out. Nietzsche saw suffering as not something to be escaped, but something to be embraced. He wrote, "To live is to suffer, but to survive is to find meaning in that suffering." All of the pain and loss in the game is not special for the characters involved. Regardless if it's in a magical painting or a small cabin in the Swiss Alps, existence has suffering baked right into it. It is absolutely inevitable. Nietzsche's concept of amor fati, the love of one's fate, is the ultimate antidote of despair. Only by accepting the totality of our experiences, even the painful ones, can we become whole. Eileen chooses the opposite. She escapes into beauty, into memory, into artificiality. She denies her suffering rather than integrating it into her being. In Nietzsche's eyes, this is life denying. It's an avoidance of the very struggle that defines what it means to grow, to become. The longer she hides in the canvas, the more damage she does to herself and everyone around her. While that all sounds like a really good judgment, it's important to note that Nietzsche lived a short and relatively miserable life that may have gone better with a little escapism. Also, in spite of all the pain he had, Nietzsche never had to endure the immense suffering of losing a child, which may be the most/worst grief that anyone can feel. There's another view on escaping pain, espoused by the ancient Epicurus. But to get a little closer to home, let's consider Aldous Huxley, who, in The Doors of Perception, suggested that certain altered states, whether through art, psychedelics, or spiritual experiences, might lead us to more profound realities, not less. From Huxley's lens, Eileen's world might not be false, but simply different. Perhaps escaping into art is not a denial of truth, but a path to a deeper one. And of course, the game doesn't resolve this tension for you. It asks you to choose. In the final act, the player must decide whether to side with the painted sun and destroy the canvas, which releases Eileen, forcing her to confront her pain, but in doing so, everyone in the painted world ceases to exist. Or the player can side with the daughter reborn within the canvas and preserve the illusion, which lets the world remain intact, but the life that continues is only in a dream. There's no easy answer. Huxley might say, let the dream persist. Let beauty and connection endure even if it's not real. Nietzsche's philosophy would seem to urge destruction, not out of cruelty, but as an act of truth, because only by facing pain directly can Eileen rejoin life and become whole again. The art must end for healing to begin. Although I'm sure if Nietzsche saw that there were real people inside the painting, he would feel differently. In any case, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a kind of meditation on how we respond to grief. Do we create comforting illusions, or do we embrace the darkness and emerge changed? This interpretation gets a fat A+, with extra credit and all. Number 4. Morality and intention. The last philosophical theme that we'd be remiss to leave out is the ethical one, or rather, the lack thereof. In fact, one of the most striking aspects of the story is how it refuses to draw clean lines between good and evil. The character of Renoir, who could easily be framed as the game's central antagonist, is instead portrayed as a desperate, grieving husband. His actions are violent and destructive, but his intent is tragically human. He wants to save his wife, Eileen, from the world that she's locked herself inside. The same complexity applies to the painted version of Renoir, a duplicate within the magical canvas world. Though monstrous in appearance and action, this version shares the same underlying motivation. He's not driven by conquest or cruelty, but by a desire to preserve what's left of his family. The question then becomes, do good intentions justify the harm caused in their pursuit? I'm sure you've all heard of what the path to hell is paved with. Philosophically, this is a very old and drawn-out question that's at the core of modern ethics. But for now, we'll leave the philosophers out of it. The tension culminates in the player's final choice. Destroying the canvas to free the real family from their grief means ending the existence of the painted world and everyone in it. Preserving the canvas means allowing a false world to persist, trapping Eileen inside her own denial. Each option presents a moral paradox. There is no evil villain, only broken people making impossible choices. The game pushes us to confront uncomfortable questions. Is it right to destroy an illusion if that illusion brings comfort? Is truth worth the cost of lives that, while unreal, feel, suffer, and hope? Does the nobility of one's goal absolve the pain they cause? By refusing to provide easy answers, Expedition 33 forces players to sit with the moral ambiguity. It reminds us that intent and impact are not the same, and that sometimes the most monstrous actions are born from the purest love. This interpretation gets a B rank. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a philosophical Rorschach test. It asks you not just to play, but to reflect. What is real? What does it mean to be free? Can love justify destruction? And perhaps most painfully, is it better to face your grief or live forever in the dream that denies it? Through a world painted by sorrow and sustained by memory, the game invites us to wrestle with some of the most difficult questions that philosophy asks. Its brilliance lies not in telling us what to think, but in daring us to think at all. Hi everyone, I'm Ben Savage and I do this channel with The Walking Dude. I'm an outsider because I don't do much gaming. That's where WD comes in.
That's the deal.
But I do like to study philosophy.
And talk about it. So that's what I'm here to do.
This is Philosophy Reviews with Crit Chance. Hope you enjoyed the video. Till next time.
Peace.
Bye.